Welcome back, folks, and welcome to my top 10 favorite board games of all time. Now, these lists shift and change over time. Certain games get played a lot more than others. Some games will sort of play them out, and I get burnt out on them a little bit, and so they may drop. But these games, there's a few new games to my top 10 list here. Some surprises even to me when I ranked them that I shifted things around as much as I did, because you would think, at this point, once you play the games, you play hundreds of games and you've played them many, many times, that things would sort of shake out and stay the same. So it surprised me a little bit at how much things changed in my top 10 list. So let's get to it. My number 10 game is a brand new game to my list. We didn't have this game last year, so we picked it up at the Origins Game Fair out in Columbus. I went out with Kyle and Isaac, and we were walking through the booths, and this game caught Isaac's attention first because it has a dinosaur theme. And the game is called Holotype. And so the dinosaurs attracted Isaac because he's always been interested in that. We sat down, and the designer of the game was at the booth, which is one of the coolest things about going to these conventions, because you can actually talk to the people who are involved and sort of find out the in-depth about the game. But he showed us how to play the game, and it was quick and easy to learn. We sat there maybe for 45 minutes to an hour, and we played through some rounds of the game. And as soon as we played it, we're like, we're buying this game. And they had a little $5 expansion. They gave you some flying, like, pterodactyl type birds. We bought that too, because we're like, $5 extra bucks, why not? We want more dinosaurs, right? This game is awesome. I've mentioned on my previous videos that I love worker placement games, and that's exactly what this is. And this is even better than Stone Age in terms of entry-level worker placement game. The thing I like about this game, I'm not huge into dinosaurs. Isaac loves that theme. For me, it's just okay. But for me, the thing I love about this game so much is how easy it is to teach. And I don't have to refresh my memory on the rules at all. It just makes sense. The theme and the mechanics work together. At the beginning of the game, you have two little guys to work with. One is your research assistant, and one is your paleontologist. And the size of the meeples is different. And it's just intuitively that helps you understand the game. And what you're doing is you're going out and you're going to these dig sites and digging up fossils. Then you're going to the library to do research. And you're publishing information. You're publishing your findings about these dinosaurs in a scientific journal. And it sounds kind of boring, but it's actually really fun. And it just makes a lot of sense. When you send your paleontologist, your tall guy, out to these different places, he gets to do a lot more, or the actions that he takes, they're the same as the field assistant, but they're better, okay? The field assistant, he's just a helper. When you send him out there, he can do a little bit. When you send the paleontologist, he can do a lot. And just like I said, the size of the guys helps you remember that. Then, once you publish research on your third dinosaur, you're going to unlock your graduate assistant. And your graduate assistant can also help you publish. And he's kind of in the middle. So you got your field assistant, your grad student, and your paleontologist. And one of the things I love about this game, too, in most worker placement games, you're putting all your guys out on the board. They're doing different things. And a lot of times, these games, you're only allowed to put out one guy at a time. All right? And that's what you do in this game. But then in most games, you have to spend a turn to basically bring all your guys back in. And sometimes that's it. That's your turn. It's kind of a boring turn, because all you do is bring your guys back and you don't actually get to do anything. But one of the aspects of this game that I really love is that your guys can get bumped out. So if I go and publish my research and then somebody else decides they want to publish research, the fact that my guy is there does not preclude them. It doesn't block them from going to that space. In most worker placement games, that's how it works. It blocks you from going there if somebody else is there. In this game, they would just bump you out and you get your guy back. So actually somebody else going to that space is beneficial to me, because now I got my paleontologist back and I can use him to do something else. And again, the size of the guys matters. A grad student can bump out another grad student, but he can't bump out the paleontologist. A paleontologist could bump out a grad student or another paleontologist, because he's the big guy. He can do whatever he wants. So this game just makes lots of sense. It's easy to learn, easy to teach, super fun. That's Holotype. My number 9 game is not new to my top 50 list, but it's new to the top 10. This is one of the highest movers of the year, and it's bumped up 26 spaces this year to number 9, and that's Furnace. This is a game that I picked up a couple years ago in Columbus at the board game convention there at Origins, and it's grown on me a lot over time. And at first, I wasn't sure if I liked this game. I think maybe because I just wasn't very good at it. But the more I play this game, the more I just really love it and I appreciate it. This is an engine building game, sort of like Wingspan, sort of like Council of 4, but it's so quick. There's only 4 rounds in this game, so the game goes really fast. And what you're doing, I love the Industrial Revolution theme, and what you're doing is creating these factories. And the factories produce coal or iron or oil, and you're basically trying to convert those resources into cash and try to make the most money as possible. But it's a really quick game because we all bid and we get these factories and then we run our factories, but we all do it simultaneously. So the game goes fast because, one, there's only 4 rounds, but also because we can all act at the same time. We're not waiting on each other to take their turn. So there's not much downtime, if any, in this game. The other thing that's super cool about this game is the way you bid on things. You have 4 discs, numbered 1 through 4, and you put those out on the factories that you want to try to get. The highest number, whoever puts their 4 out, is gonna win that factory. Or maybe if you put a 3 out and nobody else bid on that one, you might win that factory. But the coolest aspect of it is you may actually want to lose the bid, because in some cases, let's say my opponent puts a 3 bid on this one. If I put a 2 bid and I lose, I don't win that factory, I may get compensation, and that's listed at the top of the card. And so maybe I get 2 coal if I lose the bid. And if I lose it with the 2 bid, I take that number 2, times that many coal, and so I'll get 4 coal. And so in a lot of cases, and this is the part I struggled with at the beginning, you want to strategically lose bids. And a lot of times the way you lose bids and get that compensation is more valuable than the factories that you're actually winning. And so it's a really cool aspect of the game. I haven't seen it in any other games. There's also a way that you can upgrade your factory. So once I buy a factory, if I upgrade it, I flip the card over, and now it can do even more, and it's an even better factory. And you know ahead of time, it shows you, like, when I upgrade this is what I'm going to get. So when you're buying a factory, you're not only thinking about what can I do now, but what can it do for me in the future if I upgrade that factory. And so it's a really cool game because there's like all these decisions being made, but it's fast. It's really fast. And each player can get a player power that allows you to sort of break the rules in your own special way. And so I've just really come to appreciate this game a lot more in the last year the more I've played it. And Furnace is fantastic. My number 8 game is another nature-themed game, and this one's about the same spot I think it was in last year, real close. That game is Parks. So I mentioned earlier Trekking the National Parks, which is a cool game, a lot like Ticket to Ride. This game, Parks, is the same exact theme. You're visiting national parks, but the mechanics of the game are much different. In this game, you're going to be playing 4 seasons, and you're going to be going on 4 different hikes, one each season. You're going to be going along these trails, and you're going to be gathering resources, and then you use those resources to visit parks or to buy the park cards. And that's how you're going to score points for the most part. You can also use resources to take pictures along the trail, which are going to get you points. And then you can also buy equipment, which will help you, give you some advantages when you go to claim these parks. You can get discounts on different things, or they can give you different upgrade kind of things. And then each season, there's a seasonal change that impacts the board, and so there's a lot of random variability that changes up the board, and so there's lots of replayability to this game. It's going to be a little bit different every time you play it. And so Parks is really solid. Great artwork, just beautiful artwork with each of the different national parks, and just a really great game. A little bit heavier. It can be a little tricky to teach for people who don't play games at all, but really pretty straightforward game. Once you get the hang of it, it's simple and it's quick. And that's Parks. So I've mentioned a number of times, even just a few minutes ago when we talked about Holotype, how much I like worker placement games where you're putting dudes out on a board and they're going to gather you resources or give you different things. Lords of Waterdeep is an amazing worker placement game, and it's risen on my list this year because we got a new expansion, well, new to us, expansion for this game called the Scoundrels of Skullport. And what it does is it adds a corruption track to the game, which makes the game even better. And the coolest part about it is it doesn't make the game more complicated, really. It just gives you more options. And so there are additional spaces now where you can go and get tons of resources and tons of good, cool stuff. But if you decide to go there, you're going to also get some corruption. And so the amount of corruption globally that is out there at the end of the game will dictate how many negative points you take for being corrupt. And so you could avoid corruption completely and just like, I ain't going there, and I'm just going to play straight up and don't go to those awesome spaces, but also don't take corruption because you don't want to take that risk. Or you can sort of push the limits and try to get some corruption, maybe hope that nobody else does so that the value of your corruption is not a big deal. Or if everybody's like, screw it, I'm going to these great places and I don't care about corruption, right? Then the corruption at the end of the game could be so widespread that it just like is crushing in terms of the numbers that are being taken off your scores. So it takes what was a really solid game to begin with and makes it that much better. And so I love this game. It's because it's simple, but it gives you lots of really cool options, lots of cool things to do on your turn. And so Lords of Waterdeep is a solid hit at our house. Number 6 on my list is maybe the lightest game. It's super simple. It might seem kind of silly to people, but this game has actually risen 11 spots on my list this year just because I've been able to play it with so many people, and I really love it. It's Sushi Go. I don't even eat sushi. I don't really like sushi, but this game is great. It's a card drafting game. You get a hand of cards, you pick one, you pass it to the next person, and the different types of sushi are going to score different ways. And so I love card games just in general, but this one is so easy to get to the table, and it's so quick to play. It's easy to teach people, and the more I play, it's just very relaxing. Like, you know, you're just picking some cards, you're playing. If people come in and it's like, I only have a few minutes, or, you know, I got 20 minutes to play something and I don't have time to learn something new, let's play some Sushi Go, you know. Super easy. It's a fun game to play, like, competitively, where you could play tournaments. We had a Sushi Go tournament here earlier this year. You could play lots of hands and it doesn't take that much time. And so Sushi Go will be a staple at Sidetracks for a long, long time. Number 5 is a game that doesn't get to the table as often as I'd like because it can be a little bit difficult to explain at first. It's a very simple rule set, but for some reason people have a hard time sort of wrapping their head around it the first time. But if you just like dive in and play it one time, as soon as you play it one time, you'll get it, you'll understand it, and then you can play it back again. And this game is called On Tour. I love games that have maps. And On Tour is a game where you're playing as a band and you're trying to travel around the United States and do gigs in as many different cities as possible. And on the back side of the map is Europe, and you can play Europe as well, and you're trying to do gigs in as many places there as possible. But on this game, you're rolling dice, and there's these big chunky 10-sided dice, and whatever the two numbers are that you get on those two dice, so say I get a 3 and a 9, I'm going to take the number 39 and I'm going to put that somewhere on my board. And then I'm going to take the number 93 and put that somewhere on my board. And so you're gradually filling up these circles all around your board. And at the end of the game, you're going to connect the dots from low to high to try to just make the longest route as possible. It's kind of like the old Atari game Centipede. You're not allowed to cross back on yourself in terms of your route. So you just want to connect as many dots and make your route as long as possible. Do as many gigs with your band as possible. Very simple, sort of understand. But the puzzly part of it makes it very challenging to do well at this game. Because on each turn you're picking 3 cards, and that restricts what regions you're allowed to put the numbers in. And if you put the numbers in specific cities on those cards, you're going to get bonuses. And so you're trying to make the most efficient route, but sometimes you may roll the dice and get the number that you really want, but the cards won't allow you to put it where you want to put it. And so the game can be very restrictive, frustrating in a way, and not allow you to do all the things you want to do. But this is a fantastic game. There's also a great app. I have the app on my phone. I don't play a lot of games on my phone, but On Tour and Lost Cities are the ones that I play the most. And really great game. The number 4 game on my list is the game that I think has risen the most this year. It's gone up more spaces than any other game on my list. And it's risen 27 spaces to the number 4 game. And that game is Cascadia. When I did my list last year, we had just gotten this game, and I think we had only played it a couple times. But the more I play this game, the more I love it. It's probably the most relaxing game we have because it's got beautiful artwork with different animals and different habitats that you're building out, and you're putting these animals out in different patterns to try to score. And you're trying to build your habitats to score points, but then also get these animals in different groupings and herds in order to score. So it's just very relaxing. There's not a lot of direct confrontation between players. I'm kind of paying attention to what other people are doing because if they take some pieces that I want, if they're taking a grizzly bear, it may take a while for another grizzly bear to get out and get to me. But it's really not a big deal. It's kind of like they're doing their thing and I'm doing my thing. And at the end of the game, we compare our scores and see who did it the best, right? And so it's just a really great game. It's quick and easy to learn. Doesn't take much time to learn. There's only a few rules, and so it's easy to get to the table and introduce to new people. But it's just pretty artwork, easy to learn, relaxing game. That makes it a hit. All right, the number 3 game on my list is the same number 3 as I had last year. And in a way, I cheat a little bit when I list Ticket to Ride. You've probably heard me say Ticket to Ride at least 10 times throughout these videos because for me, it's a foundational game. If you want to understand modern board gaming or be introduced to modern board gaming, there's no better place to start than Ticket to Ride. And to me, I use it as a jumping off point for so many other games and for teaching so many other games. And I say that I cheat when I put this on here because there are multiple versions of Ticket to Ride. The ones that I like the best, I like the base game a lot, just the United States map. We have the 1910 expansion for that, which gives you bigger cards and some more destinations, which is nice. We also have the Pennsylvania map, which is cool because it adds a stock market set collection element to it. We have the Nordic map, which is nice. If you're playing with 2 or 3 players, Nordic is really neat. It adds tunnels and can be a little more competitive and cutthroat than other boards because it's pretty tight and restrictive. We also have the United Kingdom map, which is on the back side of the Pennsylvania board, and that one is completely different. It has a bunch of different cards that give you technologies, and you have to get permits to be able to build tracks in certain areas. So that one ramps up the complexity quite a bit. I've only played that a couple times, so I'm not quite sure yet if I like that one or not. But there's a million different versions of Ticket to Ride. There's 1 or 2 that I've played that I didn't care for too much, but overall, I like them all for the most part. And Ticket to Ride will always be at or near the top of my list because it's just such a solid game, and no matter how many times I've played it, I never get sick of it. So one of the biggest questions that I've gotten this year since I've started Sidetracks, I've done a few different interviews for newspapers and radio and things, and people always ask, what's your favorite game? And I have a really hard time answering that question sometimes, because if you watched my top 50 games from last year, you'll see that my favorite game was a game that had a huge amount of nostalgia for me. It's a game that I played with my brothers and my friends growing up as a kid. I still have all my statistics since I was 12 years old written in my 12-year-old pencil on old-fashioned lined paper. And this game is Championship Baseball. Championship Baseball was my number 1 game if you watch my list from last year, but it slipped down to number 2 for this year. And the reason for that, a couple things. First of all, I don't think I've even played it this year, maybe a couple times, but I just don't play it as much as I used to. The window of applicability for potential players, the chances of me finding other people that are interested or willing to play this game are pretty slim. It's pretty much limited to me and my kids and my brothers and their kids, because we're the only ones that are that interested in baseball that would want to play it. Although I'd love to teach it to some other people and expand the knowledge of this game. The other thing is, the game, if you happen to find a copy of it on eBay, the game itself that comes in the box is not very good. But we've completely rewritten the rules and basically created our own game out of it. So the question is, what am I rating? Am I rating the game as I bought it, which is terrible, right? Wouldn't even crack my top 200 games probably. Or am I rating the game that my brothers and I had designed, essentially, which nobody else really knows unless they come to us and get the rules from us. So this one's such a tricky thing. So as I've been asked that question all year long, I never actually answer Championship Baseball, even though that was in my top spot last year. And it's still holding here at number 2, just because it's such a great game. And as I mentioned in last year's video, I've played this game, if you add up all the plays of this game and you put them together, I've played this game more than every single other game put together, because of the way we would play it 54 times. Like one after another, we'd play this game 54 times, and then we'd multiply the stats by 3, so we'd get a full 162 game season, and then we'd pick all-star teams and things. And like I said, we have all of our stats from when we were little kids, going on 35, almost 40 years ago. And I've introduced it to my kids, and it's a great game, and it's meant a lot to me over the years. Some of my most valuable possessions are my childhood Championship Baseball stats. So it's a great game. If anybody out there would like to learn it, I'd love to teach it to you. Come on down to the shop, and I can introduce you to Championship Baseball. So that means I've got a new number 1 this year. And this is kind of a no-brainer at this point. When people ask me in those interviews, what's my favorite game, this is always my answer, and that's Wingspan. Wingspan is the game that I've played way more times this year than any other game. There's no doubt about that. And I've been tracking, we've been tracking all of our plays of this game since we bought it. I'm not sure why, because I don't do that with any other games. But for some reason, I started doing it when we first got this game. And we've played it over 150 times so far. The game is just really great. The one thing I noticed this year, I bought a second copy of the game, one to have at the shop, and then we keep our version at home because we play it so often. I went back to playing the base game without any of the expansions, and it's not quite as good as it is with all the expansions, that's for sure. The board is certainly different with the base game as opposed to when you get the Oceania expansion. It gives you a new board, which I like a lot better. So I guess I should caveat this and say my favorite game of all time is Wingspan with all the upgrades and with all the expansions, because you add in the European expansion, it gives you a whole bunch more birds. You add in the Oceania expansion and it adds a new board and a whole bunch of new birds. And then the Asia expansion adds a whole bunch of new birds. We've got upgraded pieces for it. And again, I don't do this for any of my other games, which kind of shows you and tells you that this game holds a special place in my heart. And we play it so often at my house. I just keep it set up on our game table most of the time in the dining room so that we can jump in and play a game at a moment's notice. It's a really relaxing game. The artwork is beautiful. We even got upgraded cards this year. They had this thing where fans could draw or make artwork of their favorite bird cards, and then they sent it in, they published it. And so we went through and replaced some of the base cards with the fan artwork cards. And so the tricked out version that we have is pretty cool. And again, we've customized ours to pick and choose the rules we like from the different expansions. And like Championship Baseball, we've kind of made it our own. We've made it our own game. So it's a little bit different than the base version, but Wingspan is just awesome. I love nature and I love birds for one thing. The theme is great, but the mechanics of the game are great. There's so many birds, especially once you get those expansions added in, there's so many birds that you could go and play a different strategy every single game, and you never have the same game twice. So it adds tons of variety every time you play it. There are different round end goals that switch it up every single game. There are different ones in different orders. There are different individual goals that you go for. So there's just an unlimited number of combinations. And so every time you play it, it feels like a new game. And I don't think I'll ever get tired of playing Wingspan. So that's my top 50 games. I hope you've enjoyed these videos. I will be following up with an honorable mentions video. The games that almost made the list or are in consideration for maybe making the list next year, because it's always in flux. Every time I play games, I'm sort of reevaluating, where does this fall in the pecking order? And I'm also going to be making a video of the games that fell out of my top 50 from last year. And I'll talk a little bit about why those games dropped out, and some of those may end up making it back in someday too. So I love playing games, but I also love thinking about the meta game associated with all of it, and where do each of these games rank against each other and the different types. And I have as much fun doing that as I do playing games sometimes. So I'd be interested in what you think, if you've tried any of these games, if you agree, if you disagree. So like and subscribe to the Sidetracks channel. Throw some comments down below, and I'd be interested in what you think about these games and what are your favorite games. See ya.